Okay, so we're going to go through some examples about how to use while loops. This is called iteration. So anytime we use a loop, we're going to call that iteration. And the specific type of loop that we're talking about today is while loops. A while loop is a control structure that repeats a block of code as long as a specified condition is true. Okay, a repeat condition. A repeat condition is a Boolean expression that tells when a block of code should be repeated. And so we'll talk about that. We're going to use the word increment. Increment means to increase. Most commonly we use addition, and we're going to use the symbol like plus equals usually when we're talking about incrementing. We're going to talk about what happens when you get an infinite loop. An infinite loop is a loop that repeats forever. It's usually not a good thing. So usually when we're writing while loops, we want them to end. So we want those repeat conditions. They're really important that they eventually become true to or false so that the loop actually stops. And then we're going to talk about decrement. Decrement is a word that means to decrease, and usually we'll use those with subtraction or the minus equals symbol. So here's the basic syntax. Syntax is like the rules of how we write a while loop. We have while, the keyword while, and then a set of parentheses, and inside those parentheses we have our repeat condition. The repeat condition has to be a Boolean expression. A Boolean expression is one thing that is an expression that evaluates to either true or false. And then after the while repeat condition in our parentheses, we have some curly braces. So our opening left-handed curly brace is right after the while loop. Sometimes you'll see people put it right after the last parentheses on its own line. And sometimes you'll see it put directly below the while. Then at the end of our while loop, we have a closing parentheses, and anything between those two parentheses is what is going to get repeated as long as the repeat condition is true. So I'll do this and then do this other thing, and then I'll go back up to the top and check my repeat condition. Do this and then do this other thing, go back to the top and check the condition, and keep going and looping and looping and looping until this repeat condition becomes false. And then when that happens, it'll skip the rest of this loop. So I have some examples here, and the first example is going to be this example one, horizontal ellipses. Let me zoom out here to 100%, and we're going to say let x equal 50. So we create a variable called x and give it a value of 50, and then we say while x is less than 400. So currently x is 50, it's less than 400. We're going to draw an ellipse, and the ellipse is going to be at the x value. X is 50. It's going to be at a y value of 200, a width of 20, and a height of 20. Then we're going to increment the x variable. So we're going to add to x. So x was 50. I go whatever x was plus 50, that'll make it 100. Then x is 100. I add 50 to it, then 150. And 200, 250, 300, 350, until eventually we get to where x is no longer less than 400, and then it stops. So I'm just going to copy that code right there, and I'm going to put it on script.js. So in script.js, we have a setup function. We're not actually going to use the setup function for this. You can see I just create a canvas and make a gray background. Put our frame rate to 5. Below the setup function, we have a draw function. And inside there, I have my code for my horizontal ellipses. And when I run that code, it automatically creates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 ellipses. You notice I only called the ellipse function once. That's because this loop is repeating 7 times, as long as x is less than 400. Okay, that's our first example. Our second example, we'll change it and we'll do vertical ellipses. So this time, instead of having an x value variable, I'm going to copy this code from the README and paste it in, and I have a y value. I can run this one, and we can see that y starts at 400, draws an ellipse in the center of the x canvas, so at x equals 200, y equals 400, and this first ellipse is what happens. And then I take 50 away from 400, so it moves up. Then I draw another one, another one, another one, another one, another one, all the way up to the top. Now, if I wanted to draw one more, I could use y is greater than or equal to 0, and I can change the repeat condition. So if I change the repeat condition to greater than or equal to 0, you'll see now I should get another circle at the very top of my canvas. Okay. My goal for this experiment, or for these notes, is for you to go through and experiment with the different examples and play with the loops. Try changing the repeat conditions. Remember, the repeat condition is always inside the parentheses directly after the while. Our incrementing and decrementing have to happen in between the two opening and closing curly braces. And when we want to, and today for this assignment at least, we're making sure that all of our code is in between the opening and closing curly braces of the draw function. Beyond that, you can play with these and experiment with the different examples. I think there's, 6 examples or so. And then some ideas for things for you to do at the end. Try to draw rain falling, or draw a centipede, or a checkerboard, or grass. And there's lots of different things you can do. But play with the other examples, look at them, talk to your partners about them, and then experiment with using loops down at the bottom. And hopefully we can learn some about loops.